create more of a movement, because as you educate your clients or consumers about how to make sustainable choices, I believe that you can do that through marketing. And it's something that I've also aspired to do through the content that I've produced, is to create educational content about how to become a more sustainable business. And that when the organization decides that they need a bit of support, that you would be, the party to turn to. That's really how I've always viewed our marketing efforts. So
hello and welcome to the EcoSend podcast, a weekly podcast on becoming a climate conscious business. Every week, we'll be interviewing founders, marketers, and leaders who are championing the climate. The podcast is hosted by myself, James Gill, co-founder and CEO of Go Squared, and the makers of EcoSend. If you run a business or are responsible for growing one, and you want to have a positive impact on the environment, then listen on. Every episode, our goal is for you to learn something and be inspired to take some action. Every single one of us making small changes and some large changes will add up. We're all in this together. So let's get on with the show. Thanks so much for listening. Now let's meet today's guest. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the EcoSend podcast. Now, the EcoSend podcast is about a 30-minute show we bring out each week where I speak to other people in the world of sustainability, and often people who are founders in the marketing world and also in non-profits, but all people that are in some way trying to make the world a little bit better. And each week we bring out a new show. This is the third series of the EcoSend podcast, and I feel like it's flown by, and I hope if you've been watching along or listening along, you've enjoyed the shows so far. Today, I've got a really great show, and I'm very pleased to be joined by two guests, which is quite a rarity. And today, I'm joined by Anje and Robert, who are both co-founders of a platform called Dazzle. Now, Robert is a co-founder and has a background in the more commercially related roles in the field of sustainability. And Anje is dedicated to making a positive impact in the world by transforming businesses into fully sustainable operations. Now, I'm really looking forward to this show because it's going to be covering lots about the world of sustainability, but also another big movement, which is people working for themselves and becoming independent freelancers and having more power to them. And all of that sounds great. So hi, both of you, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, James. We're happy to be here.
Cool. Hi, Robert, and hi, Anje.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, James. Be a part of the podcast.
Awesome. It's great to have you both. So I don't know if maybe Robert, if you wanted to kick off with what does Dazzle do, and what in your own words would you say your role at Dazzle is? It'd be great to hear more.
Yeah. So my role at Dazzle is, obviously, I'm a co-founder. I founded the company beginning of this year together with Anje. And Dazzle is an online matchmaking platform, matching sustainability professionals, freelancers globally with organizations who are in the needs of an extra pair of hands to achieve their sustainability goals.
Awesome. And that sounds great. And so, Anje, you've been thinking about this space for a while. What's your role, and how do you work with Robert on all of this?
So my role in Dazzle is I focus mainly on our freelancers. So like Robert said, we match companies to top tier sustainability freelancers, and I really focus on that side of the business and the community aspect. So not only do we vet freelancers in order to be able to match them with companies who need their support, but we also have included for now an online Slack community, and we want to facilitate collaboration between freelancers, actually.
I see. So, for you, Anje, did you wake up just wanting to do this, or what was your journey like getting into this world? Like, how, it's always good to hear, like, was there a tipping point that made you want to get involved in the world of, well, I guess both freelancers and supporting them, but also the sustainability side of things?
Yeah, I think the freelancer aspect and my very recent journey, I have to owe to Robert, because he's the one that came up with the idea. But my my journey into sustainability began after, well, my sister turned vegan, and she
Right. Okay. That's a big deal.
she was quite
Yeah.
intense about her reasons. So I had
Yeah.
no choice but to educate myself a little bit.
Sure.
I watched all the documentaries, that kind of scare you about sustainability,
Yeah.
but mainly related to food impact. But the tipping point for me came during my first job, which was at an environmental health and safety platform, which obviously covers certain aspects of sustainability. But I figured out that I was quite passionate about this specific aspect of the business. And as I guess fate would have it, my then employer moved office buildings and moved into a room that they would share with a sustainability consulting firm.
I'm starting to see things piecing together here.
Yes. So I got to
Yeah.
know the team quite organically over Friday drinks, as you do, and figured out that they weren't really active in terms of marketing, which is
Mm.
my background. And I started freelancing for them. So that's where the freelancer aspect, I guess, kicked in.
Yeah.
And joined the team full time after 6 months. That's how I got to know Robert, and we started our journey as the commercial team of that consulting firm about 3 years ago, and then decided to leave to start our own venture beginning of this
Right.
year. But
Right.
that's Robert's brainchild.
Right. No, that's really good to hear. It's always great to hear the origin story. So we heard half the origin story. What about you, Robert, then? How did you get into this?
Yes, obviously I was very excited in the beginning
Yeah,
of the role that we had someone joining the commercial team from a marketing perspective. So
sure.
when I was working at this consultancy firm as a sales team lead, um, Anje joined as marketing team lead. So as Anje mentioned, we formed a commercial duo
Yeah.
back then. Um, and purely from an idea perspective, um, we actually came to the realization that when organizations want to access sustainability expertise, they mostly have three options. Where the first option is that they hire a sustainability manager for their firm. Second option is that they work with a consultancy, where we worked back then. And the third option is that they work with self-employed professionals, with other words, freelancers. And for the third option, we identified that online there was no platform that matches or facilitates the link between these self-employed professionals and organizations who are looking for these individuals. And that was our first train of thought. So also or let's say my original thought was to build a marketplace where organizations can upload a request for support and freelancers globally can respond to that specific request. But after many evenings, nights brainstorming with Anje about the topic, and also conducting a big research over 100 plus sustainability managers where exactly their need lies, we tweaked the business idea into a matchmaking platform. So from a marketplace into a matchmaking platform for one specific reason, and that is that organizations need some support in decision making as well. They need some support in defining their exact scope of work, which is not always too straightforward in sustainability. And also, once they have this scope of work defined, some decision making in which freelancer then globally is best capable in supporting us. And that's where we have developed this matchmaking algorithm or matchmaking platform that we have to open the conversations with companies, help them with scoping their exact need when it comes to sustainability, and then matching them with the individual or individuals who are best capable of supporting them to give you the full.
That really helps explain it. Thank you both of you, because I'd come across Dazzle, and I was hearing you explain the matchmaking concept, but hearing it end to end like that really helps understand it, because I think for us, like at EcoSend, we've been going through some of those challenges ourselves. Like we want to work with other people that at the very least care about the same
Yeah.
things as us, but ideally people that can teach us in areas we don't know about. And you know, there are places I will go to find a designer or an engineer or a marketing person, but to find people that know about sustainability and are able to keep pace with the rapid change and all of the evolution of what we're all finding out about climate and sustainability, and to have a place where you can go to figure that out actually and find people that can help with that is seemingly very much lacking. So you've really helped me understand more about what the platform does. So that's very, very helpful. Thank you. So I guess in terms of this whole world, like I could actually share, like we've certainly had challenges in finding people that that express those same values or know not that we know everything. No one can know everything, but we feel like we're learning more and more. But finding people that also can come in and help us, whether that's with carbon footprint measurement or understanding which suppliers are good and bad from a climate perspective. Dazzle would help us find those kinds of people. Is that right?
So
Yeah.
I know that the ESG space in particular has even sometimes been referred to as an alphabet soup with
Yeah, absolutely.
it's the
Yeah.
CSRD, and part of the CSRD is the ESRS, and then you have the
Yes.
ISSB who's working with the IFRS, and it can get very complex and quite
It makes you want to run away. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
we kind of want to get rid of a bit of that overwhelm. And we know that a lot of sustainability managers describe themselves as generalists, knowing
Yeah.
the larger space of sustainability. But then when it comes to specific topical expertise, like you just referred to, carbon footprinting and selecting suppliers, it can be really helpful to have a partner that is really specialized in this aspect. And
Yeah.
that's really the community that we've tried to put together.
Amazing. Yeah. And so I guess also for a lot of businesses, I know for ourselves, like we're not at that stage where we would necessarily need someone full time. And often I think sometimes when you go to like a larger business to get help, it can often cost a fortune. So that the freelancer market is the sweet spot for everyone there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also something we had identified in the sense of there's a big need of an extra pair of hands, as I also already mentioned in the beginning, but not per se for the full 40 hours per week. So for a full-time employee. So that's exactly the sweet spot indeed, as you mentioned, James, where we want to support with Dazzle.
Yeah.
The mission of the platform really is to make sustainability expertise more accessible, and in particular more financially accessible. Like you just said, if you look towards larger consultancies, often the price tag is substantially larger.
Yes. Yeah.
And this kind of offers also your SMEs an opportunity to work with an expert without breaking the bank, basically.
Yeah. And so I assume with all of the work you've been doing, there must have been lots of research and speaking to other businesses. And I'm sure many of the people listening might be in a position where what are the challenges businesses have in finding freelance help then? Is it the cost must be one, maybe just discovery is another, but are there other factors like how you select between people to help with? Like, what are the other challenges there in terms of finding people?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger challenges is the quality of the freelancers.
Right. Yeah.
If you do your own research on LinkedIn, for example, as an organization to find an individual, you get pretty far in the sense of you can find quite a lot of freelancers, obviously. But how do you know if this freelancer is of the desired quality you are looking for? So that's often the challenge that we heard from the research. I don't know if there's another perspective that you would like to share from the research.
No, I think that's very true. I think it would take a lot of time for an organization to go on LinkedIn or
exactly.
kind of scour through the existing freelancer platforms to find the right individual, if they even know. because I think
Yeah.
where other freelancer platforms really do hit the brief, like you just said, when you need someone for design or for marketing, it's a very detailed scope. You know exactly what you want, you know exactly what you need. So it makes it easier to find an individual that can help you fulfill that need.
Yeah.
But in sustainability, it's still quite vague in some aspects. So you need someone to kind of help you on that journey to identify what it is that you exactly need and what makes the most sense. Because prioritization in sustainability, I think, is therefore also a big challenge, because out of all of the things that you could do, what are you going to do now? What is both
Yeah.
urgent and important? And there we would also offer some guidance.
Right. That's really interesting. And so yeah, Dazzle's then like helping not just put you in touch with the right people, but also helping you even figure out what you're even trying to do and whether that's the right thing. So there's quite a lot of value and help. And yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I'm sure many people listening will be like, this could be quite a handy site to have in my back pocket. So I hope so at
Let's
least.
hope so.
um it's good because I think we've definitely like EcoSend like trying to do research in terms of like various topics on digital sustainability and wanting to do more understanding of sort of stuff that's beyond our control and understanding more about the wider industry and getting access to data that maybe we don't naturally have in-house. Like there's all of these questions where it's like, where do you turn? And we don't have like any one person on the team that would necessarily be the go-to for all those things. So it's the sort of thing I would think, well, I'd probably come to Dazzle, try and see if there's anyone out there that can. Anyway, I'm not trying to be an ad for you guys. but I guess another big topic here, and while it's not necessarily specific to climate, or maybe you disagree, but like I guess there's this whole other movement here, which is more people working independently. So I didn't know, yeah, how much you wanted to talk about that, and how I guess that's been an influential part of the whole creation of Dazzle.
Yeah, for sure. It's a trend that we definitely took into account with founding Dazzle. What we see in general is that a lot of people are choosing to be independent professionals because they, in general, or hopefully, have a higher quality of life because they're more in charge of, their own hours, where they work from in the world, and their rate, of course. Um, and there's an increase in the number of people that are interested in sustainability and thus might choose this as a career path. And we want to facilitate meaningful work for those people. And
Yeah.
as sustainability becomes a growing concern, already is, of course, but you can kind of see an uproar. We think that Dazzle can be a key piece of the puzzle in that aspect.
Yeah. And I know that like at least in the UK there's been other names for it like the gig economy and things like that, and sometimes it gets a bad rep. I know like in London at least you got things like the Uber drivers and that side of things on one end where like there's been a lot of controversy around hours worked and things like that. But I feel like maybe in the media there's been a lot of focus on, at least in the UK media, like on the negativity side of like people working independently. But there's this whole other positive story as well, which I think is the side I've seen more of personally, which is people choosing, as you said, choosing their own hours, choosing their own rates, like choosing where they want to work. And that freedom, that flexibility for a lot of people is totally changing the face of work, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another reason that we often hear as well from our own freelancers in the network that we've spoken to is that by freelancing, they feel like they can make more of an impact by helping multiple companies rather than being a sustainability manager at one particular firm.
Right.
It's also for them really a way of making more impact ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I guess you get to, the opportunity to bring that experience between different businesses and share that around, like what works for one company in one sector might be valuable insights for another company and all sorts. Yeah.
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 No, and I agree with what you're saying, James, as well. That in the media, you often see the negative sides of freelancing or independent work. There are obviously also risks or certain
Yeah.
elements you should take into account. We can also talk about that. But from
Mm.
our perspective, we have seen, especially in sustainability, that's the field where we work in, also firsthand from friends or co-colleagues working in sustainability consultancy firms, for example, shifting from 40 hours a week to 32 hours a week, so that one hour
Mm.
or one day a week they can freelance and work with a client or on a project related to sustainability where they get a lot of energy from, and feels obviously different when it's for yourself and on your own terms. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's also how we see most of the shifts happening, not directly from 40 hours a week to full-time freelancing.
Mm.
We also see that, but often, yeah, where it starts with trialing it 1 or 2 days a week and how it feels
Interesting.
to stand on your own feet in that sense and work,
Yeah,
finding your own clients, setting your own hourly rate. Um,
sure.
yeah,
I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, so people just scaling it back and dipping their toes in the water in a way to see
yeah,
if they like it or not. And I assume some people might think it's the worst thing ever and realize how hard it is to go find clients, but then
that's
but
also
some people might love
it's
it.
not for everyone.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you were saying beforehand when we were speaking that a big part of what you've been trying to do is foster a community as well. I guess that's one of the downsides sometimes when you work independently that you often have a lot of camaraderie and connection with the people you work with. So is that maybe where you're thinking that the community comes in to help support people that have gone for this more independent lifestyle?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of the things that I experienced as a freelancer myself as well. I am such an extrovert, and having to work completely by myself was sometimes a bit of a struggle. Um,
Yeah,
and also you're learning because in your more typical career, obviously you have a manager and someone that you can view as a mentor. You have a lot of influences from the people around you that you learn from in this
yeah,
more classical work setting. Whereas if you're a
yeah,
freelancer, you don't necessarily always have that mentor or manager that can teach you new things based on their experience because you're kind of going at
yeah,
it alone. So I think it was definitely a need that we identified with the freelancers also that we interviewed before even launching the platform while we were still doing our research. Is that's definitely something that they were quite keen on because
yeah.
it's also an opportunity for them to expand their skill sets and to learn from other experts in their field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I hadn't even the community side being an important part of like even just career development and learning is yeah, absolutely. You hear that a lot as well, even for people on teams where like the change from being in an office to being remote has even had an impact on that. So yeah, the importance of that community side totally resonates for me. That's cool. So I guess there's a third and final piece of this whole jigsaw, which I know very much related to the people we talk to in marketing roles. And I assume, Anya, you may be, this might be something more on your mind as the marketing person, but like the role, we're talking a lot about sustainability, talking about freelancers and how marketing can be a force for good on this whole journey. And some people I know I've spoken to on this podcast before sort of said, well, marketing is part of the problem. And, if it's all about consuming more, then how can marketing help? But your belief is that marketing, there's a lot of opportunity for people in the world of marketing that can make a positive impact on the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to be on the side where I definitely thought there is no place for marketing in the future, which is also
Yeah.
why I wanted to move my career away from it for a while and really get into
Yeah.
solely the sustainability aspect. But as
Yeah.
I've worked with companies through my experience at the consulting firm as well, I realized that it actually has quite a big role to play in education, and that it can be used as a force for good. I'm not saying that it only has or that there aren't risks or downsides attached to it, but I do feel that it has a power to create more of a movement because as you educate your clients or consumers about how to make sustainable choices, I believe that you can do that through marketing. And it's something that I've also aspired to do through the content that I've produced, is to create educational content about how to become a more sustainable business. And that when the organization decides that they need a bit of support, that you would be, you know, the party to turn to. That's really how I've always viewed our marketing efforts. So I feel like there's a lot of space to use it as a force for good rather than only to endorse consumerism, because I think that
Yeah.
there isn't that much space for it in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. If marketing is so much about great storytelling, then we need more of that and more great communication around the challenges we face and what we can do about them. So yeah, I it's great to hear a more optimistic view there, and yeah, thank you. Um, Speaking of optimism, what are your thoughts for the future and the future maybe of work, the future of sustainability in organizations? Anything you can share on how you feel, the world might be changing over the next few years? I don't know, maybe Robert, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, for us in an ideal world, sustainability would be a no-brainer in all organizations.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, talking about being optimistic as well. But that's absolutely the mission of Dazzle, to make sustainability the status quo within our organizations, or a no-brainer within
Yeah.
all organizations. Um, that sustainability is a part of every decision matrix or every decision being made within organizations. That's definitely something we stand for and strive for. And in terms of marketing, to still have a little bit of input from my side on marketing as well, even though it's not my field of expertise. I totally agree with what Anje was saying. With regards to the educational part, I think that's extremely important, but also something me personally very much appreciate in marketing is transparency.
Sure.
So that's an element I've seen at different organizations, the use of transparency on how far they are in their sustainability journey, some things that didn't went well as well. And overall, an honest tone of voice on where they stand, what the goals are, is definitely something I think will see more in the future of marketing.
Yeah.
But as I said, maybe you have some add-ons on it as well.
No, I agree. I mean, if marketing is used in a transparent and honest and more nuanced way, then I think there's definitely a space for it in a sustainable future. I think where obviously the biggest critique comes from people is, there is this big element of greenwashing that has been at play for a while. So it just always creates this sense of skepticism when companies communicate about sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it would be great if that would obviously reduce. And I know that there are lots of developments in the legislative space that are trying to tackle this, with the European Green Claims Directive, for
Yeah.
example. So
Yeah.
these movements are happening, and that I think will change marketing and business alike.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good to hear. And yeah, so hopefully a future where businesses and organizations are more transparent. It becomes easier to trust businesses because of things like that, with the clearer guidelines and requirements of what people should and shouldn't say. Hopefully everyone doing a better job and putting it higher on their agenda. That sounds like a more optimistic view of the future. That sounds good to me. Hopefully we can all do that. Yeah. Thank you both of you. I know last kind of bit, but we always like to hear if you've received any advice in the past, or if you've got any advice to share. I don't know if either of you wanted to share anything. I don't know if that's something you want to share, Anya, or you, Robert.
Yeah,
Like, go
sure.
ahead.
I
Yeah.
think what I've learned also in the research that we've done, is what has come out as a clear challenge in sustainability is prioritization, because it can be quite overwhelming. And the
Yeah.
best piece of advice that I have kind of learned is to, yeah, always ask yourself, is it urgent and is it important? And
Mhm.
if it's yes to both of those questions, yeah, should you slot it into your to-do list? And if not, you can find time for it later. That has really helped me personally, but I think it will also help businesses in their sustainability journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know many company founder or individual who everything always seems to be urgent and important and struggling with prioritization. I know I struggle with that myself. So, yeah, there's like a matrix, isn't there, that you can sort of plot things on. That's very helpful to think through, and I don't do that enough. So, yeah, thank you for that. Anya. And also, was there you mentioned, I think you mentioned before, there's maybe some sort of resource you've got coming up you want to share?
Yeah, so we've referred to the research that we've done a couple times throughout this
Yeah.
podcast, but we're not going to keep that for ourselves. We'll actually be publishing a paper very soon that is titled 10 Priorities for Sustainability, a Strategic Roadmap for Implementation. So the goal of this
Oh.
resource is to do exactly that, to help companies prioritize and kind of provide sort of like a checklist with actions that hopefully will be actionable and will help set the roadmap and make it a bit easier to tackle things.
Sounds great. A little bit of a roadmap of a bit of spoon feeding to make it easier to get started on this. Sounds like what we all need. Um, Fantastic. Well, I think we've talked about all of the topics we were thinking about, and I know hopefully many people listening will want to go check out both yourselves and Dazzle as well, because I know from my side, I think there's quite a few things we could do with some help on that could be places we'd go to the platform to check out. So the website is dazzle-platform.com, isn't it? That's the
Correct.
website. And we'll
Yes.
link to that in the notes. And people can find you both on LinkedIn, right? We'll link those in the show notes.
Happy to connect.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you both of you. Thank you, Anja. Thank you, Robert. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and hopefully we'll catch you again very soon.
Thank you, James. Pleasure to be
Thanks so
here.
much, James. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks all. Bye. And thank you to anyone listening and watching, because we bring it one of these episodes each week. And hopefully you've enjoyed chatting with Anja and Robert today. If you did, please let us know via your podcast player of choice. And I'm sure we would all like to hear your feedback, and hope you've enjoyed the show today. So thanks for listening or watching, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.